Let me tell you the one thing that explains almost every trap in this video, because once you understand it, you'll never look at a cruise the same way again. A cruise line's real goal is not to sell you a cruise. It's to get you aboard at almost any price, and then earn even more from you once you're captive on the ship, where you can't easily say no. Here's the proof. In a recent year, one major line took around $9 billion in fares, and then over $7 billion more from passengers once they were on board. Let that sink in. Nearly as much, again, from drinks, packages, upsells, and little charges, after you'd already paid for your cruise. Every one of these lines tells its investors out loud that the plan is to push more and more spending onto you once you're aboard. So this isn't a conspiracy, it's just their business, plainly stated. And for those of us on a fixed income, knowing that is your armor. Understand, I'm not telling you this to sour you on cruising, because I adore it, and a cruise remains one of the best value ways to travel there is. So much is genuinely included that a land holiday would charge you for. But the model only works in your favor if you go in a wake. The cheap fare that lured you aboard is the bait, and the real money is meant to come afterward, from you, one small yes at a time. The cruisers who come home having spent a fortune aren't foolish. They simply didn't know the game was on. The cruisers who come home having spent exactly what they intended aren't lucky. They just knew. My whole aim today is to move you firmly into that second group so that you enjoy every pleasure of the ship and pay for only the ones you actually chose. So let me start with the trap that catches the most seniors, the biggest of them all, the onboard spending trap itself. Here's how it works. The whole ship is quietly designed to open your wallet all day, every day. The drink handed to you at the gangway, the photographers at every turn, the spa flyer on your bed, the shops, the casino, the specialty restaurants, the art auction. Each one a gentle, smiling nudge to spend a little more. None of it feels like much in the moment, but a few dollars here and 20 there over 7 days is how people come home genuinely shocked by their final bill. The fix is simple, and it puts you back in charge. Before you sail, set an honest onboard budget, a real number for the week. Then, watch your account every single day, on the stateroom TV or the app, so nothing sneaks up on you. When you can see the running total, the little temptations lose their power. You spend on what you truly want, and you skip the rest with a clear conscience. And let me point out something clever the ships do that most people never notice, so you can see it for what it is. The whole layout is designed to move you past temptation. To reach the dining room, you're often walked right through the shops. The photographers position themselves exactly where you can't avoid them. The casino sits between you and the theater. The most expensive specialty restaurants get the best views and the biggest signs, while the lovely included dining room is tucked away. None of this is an accident. It's careful, expensive design meant to catch your eye and open your wallet a dozen times a day without you noticing. Once you can see the machinery, though, it loses its grip. You simply walk through the shops without stopping, smile at the photographer and keep going, and stroll past the casino to the show you actually came for. Awareness is the whole defense. Now, I want to be fair, because none of this makes cruising a bad deal. It's still one of the great values in travel. You just have to cruise with your eyes open, and that's exactly what I'm going to give you. Stay with me and keep a pen handy, because I've got 7 of these traps and the way to beat each one. Take a picture of the screen at the end and you'll have them all. And if we're just meeting, I'm Margaret, your cruise companion, and I make these for those of us cruising after 60 who've worked too hard for our money to hand it over by accident. Let's keep going. The second trap is the one dressed up to look like it's saving you money, the all-inclusive bundle that isn't what you think. Every line now sells a tempting package with a cheerful name. One calls it Plus, another calls it Always Included, another Free at Sea. And sometimes they genuinely are worth it. But here's the trap in the fine print, and it snares people constantly. That drinks portion is very often a restricted basic package, so the wine you actually want or the cocktail you fancy costs extra on top, and that included Wi-Fi is frequently the bare bones kind, fine for a quick email, but hopeless if you want to make a video call to the grandchildren. And you only discover that once you're aboard and paying to upgrade. So never buy the bundle on the name alone. Read exactly what's inside it, what drinks are covered and up to what price, what the Wi-Fi can actually do, and then do the honest math on whether you'd have spent that much anyway. Half the time the bundle is a bargain, and half the time it's selling you things you'd never have bought. Read before you're wooed. Here's the honest test I use, and I'd urge you to do the same. Sit down before you book and list what you and your spouse actually consume in a normal day. Not what you might in a fantasy of unlimited indulgence, but truly. 2 coffees, a glass of wine at dinner, a little Wi-Fi to check in with home. Put a real price beside each, multiply by the days, and compare that honest total to the bundle price. For a couple who drink moderately, the answer very often is that paying for each thing as you go comes out well under the bundle, and you keep full control besides. The bundles are built to be worth it for the heavy user on a lazy sea day sailing, and to quietly lose money for the sensible, moderate cruiser, which is most of us. Do the boring sum once, at home, and let it decide, not the cheerful salesperson at the desk. The third trap is a newer one, and it's clever. The upgrade bidding game. These days, instead of rewarding your loyalty with a free upgrade, the lines invite you to bid for a better cabin, and they'll email you again and again before you sail, nudging you to raise your offer. Here's the trap. People get caught up in it, like an auction fever, and end up bidding more than it would have cost to simply book that better cabin outright in the first place. And there's a particular sting for those of us who travel solo, because the bids are almost always priced for 2 people, so a single traveler pays double to upgrade 1 person. So here's how you beat it. Before you ever place a bid, check what it actually costs to just book the higher cabin grade directly, right now. Often it's less, and you get to choose your exact cabin instead of gambling on a random one. And if you do bid, bid low. Never in the heat of the moment. Don't let a fake auction talk you into overpaying for your own room. And there's a quieter cost to the bidding game that people forget. When you win a bid, you usually don't get to choose your actual cabin. The line just assigns you one in that grade. And it might be the very cabin nobody wanted, right under the buffet or over the nightclub. So you can pay extra through a nerve-wracking auction and still end up somewhere noisy you'd never have picked yourself. Whereas booking the higher grade directly at a price that's often lower anyway lets you choose the exact cabin on the right deck in the right spot. When you lay it out like that, the whole bidding game rather loses its shine, doesn't it? Book the room you want at a price you can see and let someone else gamble. The fourth trap is the one that quietly costs seniors the most, and beating it can put real money back in your pocket, not tracking your fare after you book. Here's what almost nobody realizes. Cruise prices go up and down constantly after you've booked, just like airfares. And on most lines, if the price of your exact sailing and cabin drops, you can often get that difference back, especially before your final payment, when you can simply have it repriced. Even after final payment, many lines offer a one-time courtesy adjustment if you're more than a couple of weeks from sailing, usually as onboard credit. But, and this is the trap, they will never ever phone you to say the price dropped. You have to catch it yourself. So here's how. After you book, keep an eye on your exact sailing, or better yet, use one of the cruise price tracker tools that watch it for you and email you the moment your fare falls. When it drops, screenshot the lower price, same ship, same date, same cabin type, and call your line or your agent to claim the difference. I've known cruisers get hundreds of dollars back or a lovely chunk of onboard credit for 10 minutes of attention. This one trap beaten can pay for your excursions. Let me make it concrete, because people don't quite believe it until they see it. Imagine you booked a balcony cabin months ago at a good price, and then in a quiet booking week, the line drops the fare on that very sailing to fill the ship. On many lines, a quick call with your screenshot of the lower price, and they'll either reprice your booking or hand you the difference as onboard credit you can spend on drinks, dining, or a shore tour. It costs you nothing but the few minutes to notice and ask. Now, the rules do vary by line, and the courtesy is often a one-time thing, and usually only while you're still a couple of weeks out, so it's not magic and it's not endless. But the point is this: the money is genuinely there for the taking, and it goes only to the cruiser who bothers to watch. The line is betting you won't. Prove them wrong, and let a price tracker do the watching for you so you never have to think about it. The fifth trap lives in the part nobody reads, the small print of the cruise contract, and it catches people out in ways that genuinely matter. When you book, you agree to a long contract, and buried in it are things worth knowing. The big one: your itinerary is not guaranteed. The line can change the ports before or even during the cruise for weather or operational reasons, and very often owes you no compensation at all when they do. I've seen a port simply dropped for weather with not a penny back. So the lesson is real. Never book a particular cruise only to be in one exact port on one exact day for a wedding, a reunion, meeting family, because the ship does not promise to get you there. Treat the itinerary as a hopeful plan, not a contract. And while you're at it, know the change and cancellation fees before you book and the rules about changing a passenger's name, because those little clauses can cost you dearly if life changes your plans, as at our age it sometimes does. This is precisely where the right travel insurance, which we'll come to, and a flexible fare earn their keep. If a port matters to you enormously, book the sailing that visits it, but hold your expectations loosely and consider building your own overland plan a different way if it's truly a must. And if there's any real chance you might need to change or cancel, choose the more flexible fare and the cover that lets you, rather than the rock-bottom non-refundable one that locks you in. A few dollars more for flexibility at our stage of life is very often money well spent, because plans do change, health does wobble, and family does call. Give yourself room to move. The sixth trap is the parade of onboard upsells aimed right at us, and I want to name them so you can smile and walk past. The art auction with the free champagne? That's not free. It's there to loosen your wallet for pictures that may be worth far less than they suggest. The spa, where a lovely massage becomes a lecture on the $300 creams you simply must buy, and where the therapist is trained to add a hot stone this and an aromatherapy that, $20 or $50 at a time, mid-treatment when you're too relaxed to say no. The photographers whose package sounds like a deal until you realize how many photos you'd need to buy. The onboard shops with their duty-free prices that aren't always cheaper than home. And the casino, designed, as all casinos are, to take more than it gives. Now, enjoy any of these if they bring you joy, truly. But go in knowing exactly what each one is. A sales pitch with a smile, and you'll never be swept along. Decide what you want before they ask, and hold to it. There's one more of these worth naming on its own, because it targets us especially. The drinks that flow so easily, you forget they're not free. A cocktail here on the pool deck, a glass of wine there at dinner, a specialty coffee in the morning, and unless you're on an all-inclusive line, each one lands on your account with a service charge on top. A couple drinking quite moderately, a beer at lunch, a cocktail before dinner, wine with the meal, can spend $80, $100, $150 a day on drinks alone without feeling the least bit extravagant. It's the easiest money in the world to spend at sea, precisely because you never hand over cash. You just tap a card and it's forgotten. So keep half an eye on it, enjoy your drinks by all means, but count them the way you would at home, and remember everyone is a real charge, quietly stacking up. Watched, it's a lovely part of the holiday. Unwatched, it's the single biggest surprise on most people's final bill. And the seventh trap is one that can cost you the most of all. If the worst happens, the cheap insurance they check for you at booking. When you book, the line will often quietly add its own travel insurance or offer it at checkout as the easy option, and people click yes without a thought. Here's the trouble. That convenient cruise line policy is very often thin, exactly where it matters most for us, the medical coverage and the emergency evacuation, which is the one thing that could truly bankrupt you if you fell ill far from home. And remember, your regular health plan frequently doesn't cover you once you're at sea or abroad. So don't just accept the box they ticked. Take a few minutes to compare a proper independent travel insurance policy, one with strong medical and evacuation cover, and ideally a pre-existing condition waiver, which you usually only qualify for if you buy soon after your deposit. It may cost a little more than their cheap version, but it's the one purchase where going cheap can cost you everything. Insure yourself properly and then sail with a light heart. I've watched what happens when someone skips this, and it's the one that keeps me up at night, because it's the trap that can take not hundreds but tens of thousands of dollars. A fall in a port, a turn for the worse at sea, and suddenly there's a medical evacuation, a foreign hospital, a flight home with a nurse, and a bill with more zeros than you'd believe. The cruise line's cheap little policy, or no policy at all, leaves you carrying that alone. Proper cover, bought early, carries it for you. So of all 7 traps, this is the one I beg you not to cut corners on. Everything else in this video is about keeping your money in your pocket. This one is about protecting your whole life savings from a single unlucky day. Compare a couple of real policies, read what the medical and evacuation limits truly are, and buy the good one. It is the cheapest peace of mind you will ever purchase. So let me hand you the list, clean, and this is your moment to take a picture of the screen. The 7 money traps and how to beat them. The onboard spending trap, beaten with a budget and a daily glance at your account. The bundle that isn't what it seems, beaten by reading the fine print, not the name. The upgrade bidding game, beaten by checking the direct price and bidding low, not tracking your fare, beaten by watching for price drops and claiming the difference. The small print, beaten by knowing the itinerary isn't guaranteed, and the fees before you book. The onboard upsells, beaten by knowing each one is a sales pitch and deciding in advance. And the cheap insurance trap, beaten by buying proper independent cover. 7 traps, 7 defenses, and a great deal of your hard-earned money kept safely where it belongs, in your pocket. You know, so many of you have written to me feeling a little foolish after coming home to a bill far bigger than you expected. And there's nothing foolish about it. These traps are designed by clever people to catch good people. I gathered all my honest guidance on keeping control of every dollar at sea into one place. The Money and Control Playbook, along with the full planner, makes up the Senior Cruise Companion Collection. It's the written version of everything we just went through. The link is down in the description, and there's a code on your screen for those of you watching on the television. It's there if it would help, and only if you want it. But here's the heart of it. A cruise line is a business, and there's no shame in that. But you are a savvy, experienced adult who has managed money your whole life, and there's no reason to switch that wisdom off the moment you step aboard. Knowing these traps doesn't make cruising less joyful, it makes it more. Because a trip where you never once feel taken advantage of, where every dollar went where you chose, is a trip you come home from smiling. Spend on what you love, skip what you don't, and let no one quietly separate you from the money you worked so hard to earn. I'm Margaret, your cruise companion. Cruise smart, spend wisely, and I'll see you on the next one.